So just welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining this morning. Welcome to our Mind the Moments Tuesday morning gathering, brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. As you all know, this is a place where we invite experienced mindfulness instructors to talk with us about what mindfulness means to them, and then to talk as a community to see how we can incorporate these mindfulness activities into our daily lives. I'm Suzanne Rowe, Palacino, and I'm very happy to be here. More than you know, happy to be here after all of our technical issues with Paul Fulton, a clinical psychologist and psychotherapist, as well as a longtime mindfulness instructor. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
So nice to have you with us this morning.
I hope you feel that way in 20 minutes or so. Thank you.
I'm sure we will. So today, Paul will take us through a guided practice with a little discussion about letting go, which is, I think, a very timely and important topic for these times. And then we'll have a chance afterwards to have a little time to discuss it as a community and to chat through the Zoom chat. So if you can go to the bottom of your screen and open up the chat, then you can see and add any questions that you might have for Paul or for me. And if you'd like to see the questions coming in and comments coming in real time, you can click down the drop-down menu where it says panelists, and you can click down panelists and attendees, and you'll see the comments and questions coming in as they flow in. So those are the reminders this morning. And besides that, just welcome Paul, and thank you for joining us this morning, and I'll hand it off to you.
Good. Well, thank you, Suzanne. And thank you to all of you who are here. The spirit of my comments today are just a way of chumming the waters a little bit, finding some other avenue or a little bit of inspiration that we can bring to keep the practice alive, because of course, if we don't tend it, it does tend to get a little fallow. So I thought I would, there's so many ways to talk about mindfulness, how it works, what it's good for, how to approach it. And in a sense, it's funny because it's such a simple thing in some respects, but there's so many different facets to it. So there are endless ways for us to talk about what it's good for and how to understand it. So the lens I want to take up briefly today is this notion of letting go, which is a concept you're certainly familiar with. But it's, I think, often misunderstood because we have it in mind that when something is arising that is unwelcomed, we think we should let it go. Well, what does that mean? Typically in practice, what this means is that when we are trying to let something go, there's a little bit of a subtle rejection of that experience, as though rather than letting it go, we're really trying to push it out the door prematurely. So remember, in our mindfulness practice, what we're trying to do is not to interfere with our experience, but just observe it closely as it is, just noticing. And that means not clinging, either through endless thinking or trying to push away or indulging something that's pleasant that we really want to kind of stick with. So with the instruction to let go, we will sometimes instead engage that part that wants it to be to our liking, and we'll try to push away some particular arising experience. And that's really not accepting. So an alternative to the insistence on letting go, we might instead think about letting it be, with the understanding that if we are attentive to whatever is arising, in each successive moment, whatever it was that existed before will leave out the back door to make space for what's present. A little like pushing something over on the bed and something falling off the other far side. Or I tend to think of it a little as like opening both the front and the back door of the house. So the wind can enter easily, but it also finds a way to exit. So more broadly, this whole notion of letting go, though, is both, we could say, the means of our practice, something that we are trying to enable when we're meditating, but it's also a bit of the fruit of the practice, in the sense that what we are learning to do in daily life is to let go of so much We are letting go of what? Well, our fixed ideas, right? Our fixed ideas about who I am, who I'm supposed to be, our fixed ideas about how we should be treated by other people, our fixed ideas about other people, what's right with them, what's wrong with them, loosening our grip on our opinions about things, letting go of our expectations for how things are supposed to go, letting go of our grievances, of our very well practiced judgments about things and for people. Broadly, I guess it is learning to let go of our need for things to be any particular way at all, right? And we're practicing this broadly in our lives by practicing it in this kind of microscopic moment to moment way in our meditation practice. The spirit of mindfulness, the instruction I often offer myself is to ask the question, what is already present that wishes to be known? What's already here, and can I allow it to be so? Can I drop all agendas for whatever is happening in this particular moment? And that's the spirit, rather than trying to get concentrated, to get calm, to get anything at all. Understanding that those qualities of mind may arise, but more or less as a byproduct of our willingness to drop the need to control, to fix, to avoid, to escape, to manipulate, in the interest of just knowing. So maybe that's enough. We can practice together in this spirit. So in any way that you are, any way that you like, find a comfortable posture. And as usual, eyes closed if you wish. And coming into an upright position, sitting upright right in the center of our lives. And taking stock, noticing what is already present. Noticing the presence of the body. Of sensations. An energy level. Right? Maybe a mood. Thoughts swirling about. So with full attention, seeing if it is possible to allow everything to be just exactly as it is. What is already present that wishes to be known? Can I be with this just as it is? Can I drop all agendas for this moment? just knowing where your attention is. And resting comfortably, simply observing the flow of experience, the changing nature of experience passing through our senses. So letting go is to let be, knowing that if we allow things to be just as they are, they will come and go at their own pace. And in a moment, at the sound of the bell, just following the sound as it fades into silence, and opening your eyes and returning to the meeting.
Thank you so much, Paul.
You know, we can really complicate our practice, um, trying to make something happen. And it's much simpler than we tend to make it. You know, one reflection that I often use is some of you may be familiar with noting practice, where you're kind of giving a soft mental note to everything that arises. But I've kind of reduced that into a very distilled noting practice, which is to say, when I find my attention is striving or trying to make something happen or be rid of something, whatever, when I'm getting a little bit too purposeful, I will make the note, the soft mental note of this, just this. And I'll say to myself, this, meaning, what am I being attentive to? Whatever this is, just as it is. And it's a nice reminder to keep it simple.
Yeah, I like that. Someone has shared in the chat, love the quote by Anne Lamott. What if we stop trying so hard and instead resist less?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that quote. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think about this in relation to where we are right now in the world and with the last year, and how, you know, even with the opening up of things in our lives and in, you know, everyday life, how maybe we just need to let ourselves take it as slowly or as quickly as we need to. Just because things are, you know, there's been, you know, opening up of restaurants and masks are, you know, not needed outside, or we just have to take it as we want to take it, and not make more out of it.
Hmm. You know, with regard to this notion of holding on or letting go, I will say that we can understand any moment of unhappiness or stress or suffering as evidence that we're holding to some idea about how it ought to be. And so when you ever find yourself in the course of meditation or in the course of your daily life, kind of struggling with something or feeling crummy or wrong, you know, you might ask, what is it that you're holding to? What idea is lingering in the back of your mind about how it ought to be? What should be present that isn't present? Or what is it that you want that seems to be missing?
Mm-hmm. Someone has asked, can you elaborate on the distinction between accepting what is and resigning oneself to an external circumstance? Don't
Yeah,
want to resign myself to an obvious injustice.
right. Right. If this practice ever became the basis for complacency, I would say we should run from it as fast as we can. I think of this as cultivating the kind of wisdom to be able to distinguish those things that really require or call upon us to accept, and but not to use that, not to be over inclusive, so that we bundle in with that those sources of suffering that demand change and demand our action. And in that way, I would think of our practice as helping to clarify and empower us to take action where it's necessary. If you had a piece of gravel in your shoe, and this is a trivial example, you could sit and be mindful as you walk. Pain, pain, pain. But I think that'd be crazy, right? You stop, you empty your shoe, right? So this is not meant to walk around with a hair shirt or gravel in your shoe or to accept injustice in any way. To the contrary, I actually think our practice allows us to engage in those kinds of real world struggles, but without the contagion of our anger and our despair. It makes us more effective. So, we could talk about this at great length, but I think it's a wonderful and important question. But just know that this is not about accepting unacceptable circumstances that demand engagement. Yeah, that's complacency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, though.
Yeah, that was very good. And someone else mentioned, please talk more about this, quote, this, end quote. My anxiety does resist the peace of the moment.
Yeah. Well, that's what anxiety does. Anxiety, being more or less identical to the physiological experience of fear, tells us to get away from this. It mobilizes us for fight or flight, right? So the last thing we want to do is to be with this when it's anxiety, when anxiety is saying, elsewhere, elsewhere, this is not a safe place to be. But of course, if there's no genuine danger, then anxiety itself is the danger. And then we are faced with the steep challenge of being mindful of anxiety itself. Right? The beauty, however, of bringing mindfulness to anxiety is that in the process of paying really close attention to what that experience really is, we can begin to deconstruct it a little bit. Oh, there's some fluttering in my gut. Oh, sweaty palms, unpleasant, right? Heart beating. Oh, these catastrophic thoughts, right? And when we take it apart like this, we begin to realize that it's actually maybe more tolerable than we feared. From a distance, anxiety is intimidating, but when we get really intimate with the experience, we find that it's just mostly a bunch of unpleasant physical sensations. So it's difficult to sit still in the middle of anxiety because it's trying to tell you to get up off the cushion. But it's an interesting exploration when you drop into this, when this happens to be that which is unwelcomed or difficult. This is the cutting edge of our practice. And if it's more than you can bear, it's possible to take your foot off the gas a little bit. But it's really a wonderful thing to move toward it, and with curiosity and investigation. Right? And see what becomes of the anxiety. As someone pointed out to me, when you bring your attention to present moment experience, one of three things is going to happen. Whatever it is going to get worse, it's going to get better, or it's going to stay the same. That's it. No surprises, one of those three. And which of these three is none of your business. You're just there to show up and pay attention to it. So lots more to be said on matters of anxiety too, but again, a wonderful, wonderful question.
Yeah. Just to add to that, if I think it was Janice, Judd, if you look up and Google Judd Brewer, he has a wonderful book about unwinding anxiety and how anxiety is maybe a habit we can unlearn. So that's just another something that may be helpful. So thank you so much, Paul. So much more that we could talk about in this time together, but our time is short and sweet. And we are very grateful for you coming on this morning. So thank you for joining.
Pleasure. I hope everyone just simply continues your practice with steadiness.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we will see you all on Thursday at 8:30 with our own Tara Healy. Thank you all for joining, and see you soon.